never told my son about my $40,000 salary. His wife said, "Why do we need a poor old woman? Get out." I left without saying anything. A week later I took their house. Hello friends. I'm so happy you're here with me today. Please click the like button and stay until the very end. Tell me what city you're watching from so I can see how many places my story reaches. I worked as a teacher for 38 years in a small town in Michigan. 38 years of waking up early, grading papers at night, and feeling proud when my students learned something new. My husband, James, died when our son Daniel was just 10 years old. I raised Daniel by myself, working extra hours tutoring kids after school so he could have nice things. I wore the same 4 outfits over and over so Daniel could get new shoes when his old ones had holes. Daniel never knew about the money. Not the real numbers. He saw me use coupons at the grocery store, drive an old car that was 20 years old, and buy things on sale. He saw a mom who was careful with money, who saved every penny. What he didn't see was the money I had saved in the bank, the investments I made slowly over many years. James was smart about saving money, and he taught me before he got sick and passed away. When I stopped working at age 65, I had saved $750,000. That's a lot of money. Not enough to be super rich, but enough to live well and help Daniel when he needed help. And he did need help. 2 years ago Daniel called me. His voice sounded worried and scared. His wife, Amanda, was going to have their 3rd baby. They lived in a tiny apartment with only 2 bedrooms, and with another baby coming, they needed more space badly. But Daniel's job at the phone company didn't pay enough money for them to buy a house. And Amanda only worked part-time at a flower shop, which didn't bring in much money either. "Mom, I don't know what we're going to do," he told me. "We've been looking everywhere. Every house costs too much money or is in a bad area." Found them a house. A beautiful house with 4 bedrooms in a neighborhood with good schools. The house cost $280,000. I didn't tell Daniel how much money I really had. Instead, I bought the house through a special company that my lawyer helped me set up. Daniel and Amanda thought they were renting from some nice landlord who didn't ask for much money. They didn't know the money they paid me each month went into a special account for their children's future. They thought they were so lucky to find such a kind landlord. They never asked questions. Why would they? But something changed this past year. Amanda always cared a lot about looking nice and having expensive things. She wanted to look as good as her friends did. I noticed she started making mean comments, saying things that hurt my feelings. She would smile, but it wasn't a real smile. Little comments about my old clothes, about how I didn't understand modern things. Daniel would laugh nervously and try to talk about something else. Last month was their daughter Lily's birthday party. I brought a cake I made myself. Lily's favorite kind, strawberry with cream on top. Amanda looked at it and said, "Oh, you didn't need to do that. We already ordered a fancy cake from the expensive bakery." Nobody ate my cake. It just sat there while everyone ate the store-bought one. Then came last Wednesday. I drove to their house to bring some toys I found at a yard sale. They were like new, beautiful toys the kids would love. I used my key to go inside. They gave me that key a long time ago. Amanda was in the living room with her friend Kelly. They were both drinking wine in the middle of the day. "I'm so tired of her just showing up whenever she feels like it," Amanda was saying. "She acts like this is her house or something." I stopped walking. The toys felt heavy in my arms. "Just tell Daniel to say something," Kelly said. "Daniel won't do it. He feels bad because she's all alone. But honestly, I'm so tired of pretending to be nice. She wears clothes that look like they're from a thrift store. She brings us weird old stuff from garage sales. She's just embarrassing to have around." I put the toys down very quietly on the table in the hallway. Then I left. I didn't say a word. My hands were shaking as I drove home. But I came back the next Sunday for dinner like we planned. Daniel had asked me to come, and I wanted to see my grandchildren. Dinner felt strange and uncomfortable. Amanda barely talked to me. When I tried to help clean the dishes, she said, "We can handle it ourselves." Then something happened that changed everything. Daniel's youngest daughter, Maya, knocked over her cup of juice, spilled all over the floor. Amanda started yelling about how the house was expensive to take care of, how they couldn't afford to replace things if they got ruined. I softly said maybe I could help clean it with a special cleaner I knew about. Amanda turned and looked at me. Her face was red and angry. You know what? I'm sick and tired of this. Your cheap little tricks and your second-hand advice. We don't need any of it. Amanda, Daniel said quietly, but she kept going. Honestly, why are you even here? What do you give us? You live on some tiny retirement check in that sad little apartment. She walked closer to me. Her voice got quieter but meaner. Why do we need some poor old woman hanging around making us look bad? Get out. Nobody said anything. Daniel stared down at his plate. My grandchildren looked scared and confused. Amanda, I started to say. I said get out, she screamed. Take your pathetic life somewhere else. I looked at my son. My boy. My Daniel. He wouldn't look at me. So I left. I walked out of that house, my house, without saying one single word. The drive back to my apartment was like a bad dream. My hands held the steering wheel so tight they hurt. It takes 15 minutes to get from their house to my apartment, and I don't remember any of the drive. My mind just kept playing Amanda's words over and over like a broken record. Poor old woman. Pathetic life. And Daniel. Oh, Daniel. Just sitting there, saying nothing. Letting her talk to his mother like that. Not standing up for me even a little bit. I parked in my regular spot behind the apartment building where I've lived for 6 years. People always asked why I didn't move somewhere nicer after I stopped working. This place is fine for me, I always said with a smile. The real reason was more complicated. Yes, this place was fine, but it also helped me keep my secret. Nobody asked questions about money when they saw where I lived. Inside my small apartment with just one bedroom, I stood in the kitchen for a long time. I was still wearing my coat. Then suddenly my legs felt weak. I sat down at my small kitchen table and started crying. Big loud crying that made my whole body shake. When was the last time I cried like this? Probably at James's funeral. That same feeling like the ground was disappearing under my feet. How did I raise such a weak son? A son who would just sit there while his wife was so mean to his own mother. I gave up everything for Daniel. Everything. And for what? So he could sit there quietly while I got treated like garbage. The crying lasted maybe 10 minutes. Then something inside me became cold and still. I stood up, took off my coat, and made myself a cup of tea. My hands didn't shake anymore. As I waited for the water to get hot, I saw myself in the window. A 68-year-old woman with gray hair wearing a regular sweater from the store. Poor old woman, Amanda called me. She had no idea who I really was. I took my tea to my desk in the corner of the living room. I opened my computer. My fingers moved fast like they did when I was still working with numbers. I looked at my bank accounts first. $758,340. Even after buying their house and paying for things they didn't know about for 2 years, I still had over $450,000 that I could use right away. Then I opened the folder with papers about the house. The house at 623 Oak Street that I bought 2 years ago for $280,000. I owned it through a special business setup called Meadow Properties LLC. Only I owned that business. The house deed was in the business name. Daniel and Amanda signed a rental agreement. They thought it was a normal renting contract. They barely even read it. But it was actually a rent-to-own agreement with very specific rules. Rules that I could use or end any time I wanted. My mind started thinking about what I could do. I thought about it the same careful way I used to think about math problems at work. What were my choices? What did I really want to happen? Did I want revenge? That word felt ugly. But I thought about it anyway. Well, not revenge exactly. But consequences. Lesson. Making them understand what they did wrong. I spent hours that night reading papers and writing notes. The rental agreement had a part about being respectful to the property owner. Another part said I could end the agreement with 30 days' notice if certain things happened. But this wasn't just about the house, was it? This was about respect. About teaching Daniel that what you do or don't do matters. Around midnight, I closed my computer and sat in my dark living room. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not since I argued with the hospital when they tried to charge us too much money when James was dying. Power. Quiet, cold power. But I had to be careful and smart. I couldn't just kick them out. That would make me look like the bad guy. Everyone would think I was mean. No, this had to be done the right way. The legal way. They needed to understand they took advantage of something special. Something they never really earned. I needed proof that Amanda was mean to me. I needed everything written down. I needed to protect myself legally while also making it very clear that I was not, and never was, anyone's poor old woman. The first step came to me as I got into bed at 1 a.m. Tomorrow I would call my lawyer, Richard Foster. Richard handled James's will and helped me buy Daniel's house. He knew everything about my situation. And he would know exactly what to do next. For the first time since that awful dinner, I smiled in the dark. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. Richard Foster's office was in a quiet brick building downtown. The kind of building that looks serious and official. I called him first thing Monday morning. He cleared his afternoon just for me. We've known each other for 18 years. He was James's best friend from college before he became a lawyer. "Margaret," he said, standing up when his assistant brought me in. His eyes were kind but also sharp. He could tell something was wrong. "You sounded upset on the phone." I sat down and told him everything. The conversation I overheard, the birthday party with my cake that nobody ate, Amanda screaming at me, Daniel's silence. Richard listened without interrupting. His fingers were pressed together under his chin. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to happen here, Margaret?" "I want them to understand what they did," I said. "I want consequences that match what they did wrong. And I want it done legally, properly, so nobody can say I was wrong." Richard pulled out the folder with the house papers. He read the rental agreement carefully and wrote some notes. Then he looked up at me. "You have every legal right to end this lease," he said. "The part about maintaining good relations with the property owner gives you grounds. But Margaret, if I can be honest, this is your son, your grandchildren. Are you absolutely sure?" "I'm sure that my son needs to learn that standing by while his mother gets treated badly is not okay," I said. "I'm sure that Amanda needs to learn she's been living in a house she could never afford on her own. I'm sure that I deserve basic respect. I'm not asking for much. Just respect." Richard nodded slowly. "Then here's what I think we should do. We'll send an official letter from my office to Daniel and Amanda. It will tell them that Meadow Properties LLC, we won't mention your name at first, has decided to sell the house. As current renters, they'll get the first chance to buy it at the current market price, which is now around $380,000. They'll have 30 days to get a loan or move out. They can't afford that," I said quietly. "Daniel's credit isn't good enough, and they barely have any savings." "Exactly," Richard said. "Which means they'll need to either find that money somehow or move out. The legal process is solid. And Margaret, if they come to you for help, they won't know I'm involved," I interrupted. "Not yet. Not until I want them to know." "Good," Richard said. I signed the papers I needed to sign. Richard said he would send the letter by special delivery the next day. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Daniel's face when he opened that letter. Would he be scared? Would he panic? Would he finally realize what he lost? Part of me wanted to call him, to warn him, to make everything okay again. But then I remembered sitting at that dinner table, watching him stare at his plate while his wife called me pathetic. The special delivery letter arrived on Thursday. I knew because Richard called to tell me. Then I waited. Daniel called me Friday evening. My phone rang and his name showed up on the screen. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. He called again an hour later. Another voicemail. By Saturday morning there were 8 missed calls. Finally Saturday afternoon I answered. "Mom." His voice sounded panicked and desperate. "Mom, thank God. Something terrible is happening. What's wrong, Daniel? I kept my voice calm and neutral. It's the house. The landlord is selling it. They're giving us 30 days to buy it or leave. Mom, we can't do this. We don't have that kind of money. We don't have any savings, and with Amanda not working full-time and my salary. His voice cracked. I don't know what to do. We could lose everything. Have you talked to the landlord? Yes. Explained your situation to them? We don't even know who the landlord is. It's some business company, and everything goes through lawyers. Mom, I'm really scared. The kids' school is here. Everything we know is here. Where are we supposed to go? I let the silence sit there for a moment. That does sound very difficult, Daniel. Could you help us? I know you don't have much, but if you had any savings at all, even just a little bit for a deposit on a new apartment. Daniel, I said softly. I'm just a poor old woman living on a tiny retirement check. Remember. What could I possibly do to help? The silence on his end was complete. Total silence. Mom, I have to go now, Daniel. Good luck with everything. I hung up before he could say anything else. My hands were shaking again. But this time it wasn't from sadness or shock. It was from the satisfaction of watching everything start to fall into place. They still didn't understand. But they would. Sunday morning I got a text from a number I didn't know. When I opened it, I felt my blood go cold. It was a screenshot from Amanda's Facebook page. Posted just after our last dinner. There was a photo of me from that evening. Someone took it without me knowing. My face looked tired and old. The caption said, "When your mother-in-law shows up wearing clothes from the 1980s and wonders why we don't want her around more often. Bless her heart. Time to cut ties." #family drama. Under it were dozens of laughing emojis and comments from her friends. OMG, you're such a saint. Time for the nursing home. Drop her. You don't need that. The unknown number sent another text. I thought you should know about this. I'm Amanda's cousin, and I never liked how she talked about you. She's been posting things like this for months. I took screenshots of everything before she made her page private this morning. Let me know if you need more proof. I stared at my phone. I read it again and again. Amanda's words. The casual cruelty. The public humiliation. Making fun of me where everyone could see. And now I had proof. Real proof. The point of no return had come. And I was ready to cross it. Monday morning I sat in Richard's office again. My phone in my hand with all the screenshots saved and printed out. Richard looked at each one carefully. His face got more and more serious. This is harassment and defamation, he said quietly. Margaret, this gives us even stronger grounds. Not just for ending the lease, but for potential legal action if they try to fight us. I want to move forward, I told him. All the way. Then here's what happens next, Richard said. I'll send a second notice. This time telling them directly that the property owner knows about their social media posts making fun of her and lying about her. And that this breaks the lease's respectful relations clause. We'll give them 10 days to move out instead of 30. Will that hold up in court? Yes. Absolutely. Especially with this proof. He tapped the papers. Margaret, they don't have any defense. The second notice went out on Tuesday. It was delivered by a special courier service. Richard said it would arrive by the end of the day. Got there at 4:32 p.m. I know because Amanda called me at 4:39 p.m. I didn't answer. She called 8 more times. Then Daniel called. 10 times in a row. I let every single call go to voicemail. My heart was pounding as I listened to each message. They got more and more desperate. Michael's last voicemail that night was different. His voice sounded hard and angry. Mom, I know you can see I'm calling. I know you're doing this. Amanda figured it out. That LLC. The lawyer. She remembered you mentioning that lawyer's name years ago. This is you, isn't it? You're the landlord. You're trying to kick your own son and grandkids onto the street because of one fight. Because Amanda said some things when she was stressed out. What kind of mother does this? One fight. Some things when she was stressed. I wanted to scream. Thursday afternoon they came to my apartment. I looked through the peephole and saw Daniel pounding on my door. Amanda stood behind him with her arms crossed. Mom, open this door. We need to talk about this. Margaret, please. That was Amanda. Her voice sounded fake sweet. Let's be reasonable here. We can work this out like adults. I stood completely still on the other side of the door. I held my breath. After about 10 minutes they finally left. I heard Amanda's voice echoing in the stairwell. I can't believe this. She's really going to do this to us. We need to get a lawyer and fight back. Fight back. The words made me feel cold inside. Friday morning I got an email from a lawyer I'd never heard of. Daniel and Amanda had hired their own lawyer. The email was full of threats and legal words. It said I had made a verbal promise to give them the house eventually. That I had promised the house would be theirs someday. That kicking them out was like elder abuse but backward. That they would sue me for causing them emotional pain. That they would fight this in court for years. I sent the email to Richard. He called me within 30 minutes. It's all bluff, he said. Empty threats. They have no case whatsoever. But Margaret, they're going to make this ugly and nasty. Are you ready for that? Yes, I said. But my voice shook a little. That night Daniel and Amanda came to my apartment again. This time they brought the children. I could hear Maya crying in the hallway. Grandma! Grandma, please! Look what you're doing! Amanda shouted through the door. You're hurting your own grandchildren. Is this who you want to be? A bitter old woman who destroys her family over nothing. I sat on my couch with tears running down my face. My hands were pressed over my ears. Using the children as weapons. There was no low they wouldn't stoop to. But I didn't open the door. Couldn't. They finally left after 20 minutes. I heard Daniel yell one last thing as they walked away. Fine. If this is how you want it, you'll never see them again. You're dead to us. Saturday morning Richard filed papers in court asking for a restraining order because of the harassment at my home. A judge approved it temporarily. Daniel and Amanda had to stay at least 300 feet away from me and couldn't contact me except through lawyers. When the sheriff delivered the restraining order papers to them, Daniel called Richard's office yelling and screaming. Richard recorded the phone call. Daniel threatened to destroy me. To tell everyone what a crazy person his mother was. To make sure I died alone with nobody at my funeral. Richard sent me the recording. I listened to my son's voice. Full of rage. Threatening me. And something inside me finally became completely hard. Like stone. Took a week off from everything. No phone calls. Emails. No thinking about the situation. Drove to a small cabin I rented in the woods 2 hours away. I sat by a fireplace, read books, took long walks in the cold air. I needed to clear my head. To remember who I was outside of all this conflict. When I came back to my apartment the next Monday, I felt centered. Ready for whatever came next. They had tried to scare me. To manipulate me. To use my grandchildren as shields. They failed. Now came the next part. The envelope was sitting outside my door when I got back from the woods. Expensive cream-colored paper. My name written in beautiful handwriting. No return address. Inside was a letter written by hand from Amanda. Dear Margaret, I've had time to think about everything that happened, and I want to apologize from the bottom of my heart. I was completely wrong. The stress of running a household, raising 3 kids, and trying to keep up with everything. It all crashed down on me and I took it out on you. That was so wrong. You've been nothing but generous and loving to our family. And I treated you with cruelty you didn't deserve. Daniel and I have been talking, really talking, for the first time in months. We've realized how much we've taken you for granted. How much we need you in our lives. The girls ask about you every single day. Lily made you a card. I put it in here with this letter. I'm begging you, Margaret. Please give us another chance. Come to dinner this Sunday. Let's start over. Let's be a family again. Whatever we did to upset you about the house, we'll fix it. We'll do anything. Please don't let one terrible moment destroy everything we built together. With all my love and deepest regret, Amanda. Attached to the letter with a paperclip was a drawing from Lily. Stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. I miss you, Grandma, written in her careful 7-year-old handwriting. I read the letter 3 times. It was good. Very good. Amanda always knew how to use words well. How to show people the version of herself she wanted them to see. The perfect apology. Hitting every right note. Admitting fault. Being humble. Expressing love and hope. I set it aside and made myself coffee. An hour later, another envelope appeared. This time it was slipped under my door. I heard footsteps running away quickly down the hall. This envelope had a check for $3,000 made out to me. A note in Daniel's handwriting came with it. Mom, this is every dollar we have saved. I want you to know we're serious about fixing this. Please cash this check. Please forgive us. Love you. I'm sorry I let you down. Daniel. I held the check up to the light. It was real. They had emptied their entire savings account to make this gesture. I tore it into tiny pieces and threw it in the trash. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered carefully. Mrs. Henderson. A woman's voice. Professional sounding. This is Barbara Walsh. I'm Amanda's mother. I hope you don't mind that Amanda gave me your number. I wanted to reach out personally. Mrs. Walsh, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Please call me Barbara. Listen, I know my daughter can be difficult sometimes. She gets that from her father, may he rest in peace. But she's absolutely devastated by what's happening. And those babies, Margaret. Those sweet little girls. They don't understand why Grandma won't visit anymore. I see, I said. Amanda told me about the house situation. I have to tell you I was shocked. Shocked that you would do something so extreme over a family argument. Yes, Amanda said some things she shouldn't have. But don't we all say things we regret when we're stressed and overwhelmed? Is it really worth tearing the whole family apart? There it was. The guilt trip. Delivered in a concerned grandmother's voice. Barbara, I said calmly. Did Amanda tell you exactly what she said to me? She said there was a disagreement about housekeeping or something like that. She told me I was a poor, pathetic old woman. She ordered me to get out of the house while my son just sat there saying nothing. Longer pause. Well, I'm sure emotions were high on both sides. I wasn't emotional at all, I said. I was serving dinner to my grandchildren. But thank you for calling, Barbara. I need to go now. I hung up before she could say anything else. They were trying everything. The heartfelt letter. The financial sacrifice showing they cared. The guilt about the children. Now bringing an extended family to pressure me. Each approach carefully planned to find my weak spot. To make me give in. But I wasn't giving in. That afternoon I met my friend Dorothy for lunch at our favorite restaurant. Dorothy and I taught at the same school for 12 years before she retired. She knows me better than almost anyone alive. You look different, she said, looking at me across the table. Stronger somehow. Like you found something you lost. I told her everything. The whole story. From the conversation I heard to all the latest attempts to manipulate me. When I finished, Dorothy reached across the table and squeezed my hand hard. Good for you, she said with fire in her voice. They needed this lesson. And Margaret, you're not alone in this fight. You have people who support you. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh, I admitted to her. You're being exactly as harsh as you need to be, Dorothy said firmly. You know what your problem has always been. You spend so much time taking care of other people that you forget to protect yourself. Not this time. This time you stand your ground and don't back down. Her words made me feel stronger inside. That evening I got an email from Amanda's cousin, the one who sent me the screenshots. Her name was Beth, and she wanted to meet for coffee. We met the next morning at a coffee shop on the other side of town. Beth was younger than Amanda, maybe 33 years old. She had kind eyes and a no-nonsense way about her. I need you to know something, she said to me. Amanda has been saying bad things about you for years. At every family gathering, every holiday, she would make jokes about your clothes, your apartment, the advice you gave. She would roll her eyes when you sent the girls presents. She called you Daniel's burden. The words hurt, but they also made everything clear. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked her. "Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I'm tired of watching people get away with treating others like garbage just because they're family." Beth pulled out her phone. "I have more screenshots, more messages, months and months of them. If you need them for court, they're yours to use." I took her phone number and saved it. We talked for another hour. When I left that coffee shop, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Certainty. Complete certainty. I wasn't the villain in this story. I never was. And I was going to see this through to the very end. The restraining order lasted for 2 weeks. Then it expired. They must have been counting down the days. Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. exactly, there was a knock on my door. Polite this time. Controlled. Through the peephole I saw Daniel and Amanda standing in the hallway. Both dressed very nicely. Daniel in a nice shirt. Amanda in a dress I'd never seen before. Their faces were carefully arranged to look sorry and ashamed. I took a deep breath and opened the door. But I left the chain lock on. "Mom," Daniel's voice was soft, hurt sounding. "Thank you for opening the door. We were worried you wouldn't." "What do you want, Daniel?" I asked. "Just to talk. 5 minutes, please." "We brought coffee." He held up a cardboard carrier with 3 cups in it. "Your favorite. Caramel coffee with extra whipped cream." The detail was intentional. "See how well we know you. See how much we care." I thought about closing the door right in their faces. But something made me want to hear this. I needed to see how far they would go. What they would say. I unhooked the chain and stepped back to let them in. They walked into my small apartment. I saw Amanda's eyes look around, taking in my second-hand furniture, my small TV, my library books stacked on the coffee table. I saw the judgment flash across her face for just a second before she caught herself and hid it. We sat down, them on my old couch, me in the armchair across from them. Daniel handed me a coffee. I didn't drink it. I just held it. "Mom," Daniel started. "We've done a lot of thinking. A lot of soul-searching about everything. What happened that night was completely unacceptable. Wrong on every level. I should have stood up for you. I should have defended you. Failed as your son. And I'm deeply, truly sorry." He sounded sincere. Real. He had always been good at lying when he needed to be. He got that talent from somewhere. Amanda leaned forward. Her hands were clasped together. "Margaret, I was horrible to you. Just awful. There's no excuse for the things I said. I've been seeing a therapist." She pulled out her phone and showed me what looked like a therapist's appointment page. "To work on my anger issues. My problems. I want to be better. For Daniel. For the girls. For you." "I see," I said, not giving anything away. "We want to make this right," Daniel continued. "We talked to our lawyer and we understand now about the house. We get it. It was never really ours. We were living in your property. And we took advantage of your generosity and your kindness." "Yes, you did," I said simply. "So here's what we're proposing," Amanda said. Her voice became businesslike. "We can't afford to buy the house at the full market price. But we can pay you back over time. Slowly. We worked out a plan. If you give us 5 years, we can pay you every single penny the house is worth. Plus interest on top. You would still own it legally, but we'd be buying it from you gradually. Step by step. Everyone wins." I looked at Daniel. His eyes were begging me. Pleading. "And if I say no?" I asked quietly. The mask slipped. Just for 1 second. Amanda's jaw got tight. Daniel's face got hard. "Mom, don't be unreasonable about this," Daniel said. "We're trying to work with you here. We're doing everything right." "I'm being unreasonable." "Yes. You know what I mean. We're offering you a fair deal." "Good deal." "We're apologizing. We're doing everything you could possibly want." What more do you expect from us? What I want, I said slowly and carefully, is for you to truly understand what you did wrong. Really deeply understand it. We do understand. Jennifer's voice got louder. You're upset about one bad night. One argument. One bad night. I interrupted her. Amanda, you've been making fun of me on social media for months. Many months. You posted a picture of me without asking. You called me an embarrassment. You laughed about me with your friends online. That wasn't one bad night. That was deliberate, ongoing cruelty. Amanda's face turned red. Who told you about that? Beth. That little snake always had it out for me. Watch your language in my home, I said firmly. Your home. Amanda stood up suddenly. Beth. Your home is a sad little box in a rundown building. Meanwhile, we live in a beautiful house that you bought for us. And now you're going to throw us out of it because your feelings got hurt. Because we didn't worship you enough. Amanda. Daniel grabbed her arm. But she shook him off. No, Daniel. I'm done tiptoeing around this. Your mother is a manipulative, bitter old woman who can't stand to see us happy. She's been holding this house over our heads the whole time. Just waiting. Waiting for any excuse to pull the rug out from under us. Well, guess what, Margaret? You want to kick us out? Fine. Do it. But you'll lose your grandchildren forever. Forever. You'll die alone in this pathetic apartment. And nobody will come to your funeral. Nobody will even care. Is that what you want? Is your petty revenge worth that? The room went completely silent. Daniel had gone pale as a ghost. Even Amanda seemed to realize she had gone too far. Said too much. I stood up. Slowly. My voice was perfectly calm. Steady as a rock. I think it's time for both of you to leave my apartment now. Mom. Daniel started. Get out of my apartment. Both of you. Now. Amanda grabbed her purse. You're making the biggest mistake of your entire life. No, I said. The biggest mistake of my life was believing my son would grow up to be a better man than this. A stronger man. Daniel flinched like I had slapped him across the face. Hard. But they left. Amanda stormed out first. Daniel stayed for just one more moment. You're really going to do this? He asked. His voice was barely a whisper. You're really going to choose your pride over your family? I'm choosing self-respect over abuse, I replied. There's a difference. Now please close the door on your way out. After they left, I sat in my armchair for a very long time. My heart was racing, pounding in my chest. My hands were shaking again. For a moment, just a brief moment, doubt crept in. Maybe I was being too hard on them. Too harsh. Too unforgiving. Maybe I should have accepted their offer. Maybe. Well, I remembered Amanda's real face. The one underneath the mask. The one she showed when she thought nobody was watching. I remembered Daniel's silence that first night. His refusal to defend me even now. Even after everything. I remembered every screenshot. Every cruel word. Every dismissive gesture. Every time they made me feel small. Fear whispered in my ear that I might truly lose my grandchildren forever. That I might die alone just like Amanda promised. But louder than the fear was something else. Something stronger. Resolve. Hard as diamond. Unbreakable. They had shown me exactly who they were. And I believed them. The court date finally arrived. Cold Thursday morning in February. Thomas had filed for formal eviction proceedings when Daniel and Amanda refused to leave voluntarily. They hired their own lawyer. A young, aggressive man named Brad Morrison who specialized in tenant rights cases. According to Richard, Morrison had been making a lot of noise about elder abuse, about unfair treatment, about verbal contracts that supposedly existed. I dressed carefully that morning. Not in my usual clothes from discount stores, but in my one good suit that I still own from my teaching days. Navy blue. Well-tailored. Professional. With modest jewelry. I looked like what I was. A retired professional with almost 40 years of experience. Competent. Capable. Richard met me outside the courthouse. Ready? He asked. Yes. Remember, stay calm no matter what happens. Let me handle most of the talking. If you're asked direct questions, answer simply. Directly. Don't let them make you angry or upset. We entered the courtroom. It was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled. Formal-looking. Serious. Daniel and Amanda sat at the defendant's table with their lawyer. Amanda wore a conservative dress and barely any makeup. Daniel's face looked drawn. Exhausted. Older somehow. They didn't look at me as I took my seat at the plaintiff's table. Judge Catherine Reynolds presided over the case. She was maybe 58 years old. Sharp eyes. An expression that suggested she had heard every excuse and every lie imaginable. Brad Morrison presented his case first. He painted a picture of a struggling family. Young parents with small children barely getting by financially. He said they had been promised a home by a loving grandmother who cared about them. He claimed I had made verbal agreements, promises, to eventually give them the property as a gift. That they had trusted these promises in good faith. Relied on them. Built their lives around them. He called me vindictive. Mean-spirited. Said I was punishing them over a minor family disagreement. A simple argument that got out of hand. Then he called Amanda to testify. To take the witness stand. She was very good at it. Extremely good. She spoke softly. Her voice trembling at exactly the right moments. She talked about how much she loved me. How grateful they had been for my help over the years. How shocked and confused they were when the eviction notice came out of nowhere. She made herself look like a devoted daughter-in-law who had simply been stressed and overwhelmed one evening. One bad night. Mrs. Henderson, Morrison asked her, did the defendant ever promise that the house would eventually belong to you and your husband? I believed it was understood, Amanda said carefully. Margaret always said she wanted to help us build a future. Good life. She wanted the girls to have stability. Real home. We both thought that meant the house would be ours someday. That's what family does, right? And the incident that allegedly triggered this eviction. Can you describe what actually happened that night? I was having an awful day. Terrible day. We had just found out we might need to replace the water heater, which would cost thousands of dollars we didn't have. I was stressed about money. Worried. Scared. When Margaret tried to give advice, I snapped at her. I said some things I didn't mean. Things I regret deeply. I apologized right away. Immediately. That's a lie. The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. Before I could think. Judge Reynolds looked at me sharply. Sternly. Mrs. Henderson, you will have your turn to speak. Please remain quiet. Richard squeezed my hand under the table. A warning. They come. When it was our turn, Richard presented the evidence methodically. Carefully. Like building blocks. One piece at a time. The property deed showing I owned the house. The LLC paperwork. The signed lease agreement with all its terms clearly written out. He showed that every single payment Daniel and Amanda had made went into a trust fund for their children's future education. Their future. I had never taken a single penny from myself. Not $1. Then he presented the screenshots. Amanda's Facebook posts printed out in full color. Large enough for everyone to see clearly. The photo of me taken without my permission. The mocking caption making fun of my clothes. The cruel, laughing comments from her friends. I watched Amanda's face turn white as paper. Watched the blood drain from her cheeks. Richard presented more evidence. Beth had sent him additional screenshots. Private messages where Amanda called me. That senile old bat who won't leave us alone. Text messages where she joked about putting her in the cheapest nursing home we can find when the time comes. These are not the words of a loving, grateful daughter-in-law, Richard said clearly. Firmly. These are the words of someone who viewed Mrs. Henderson as a resource to exploit. As a burden to mock and eventually discard. Then Richard called me to the witness stand. I walked up slowly. Placed my hand on the Bible. Swore to tell the truth. Sat down in the wooden chair. Mrs. Henderson, Richard began gently. Ainley. Why did you keep your financial situation private from your son and his family? I looked at Daniel. Really looked at him. Made eye contact. Because I wanted him to value me for being his mother. Not for what I could give him materially. I wanted him to be independent. To build his own life with his own hands. I helped because I loved him. Not because I expected constant gratitude or praise. But I did expect basic respect. Basic human decency. And when you purchased the house for them to live in, what was your intention? Your goal? To give my grandchildren a stable home in a safe neighborhood with good schools. To give my son and his family security. Peace of mind. The rent payments they made each month went into a trust fund for Emma, Lily, and Maya's education. Their college funds. I never wanted them to pay me back. I just wanted to help them build a good life. What changed? What made you decide to end this arrangement? I felt my voice get stronger, more firm. I realized that my generosity had made them feel entitled, like they deserved everything without appreciating it. They took and took and took. And not only did they not appreciate what I gave them, they actively looked down on me for not giving them even more. Amanda didn't just say hurtful things one time in one argument. She systematically humiliated me. Privately and publicly. For years. And my own son, allowed it. Enabled it. Never once stood up for me. Did you ever promise to give them the house as a gift? Ever tell them it would be theirs? Never. Not once. It was always my property. The lease agreement made that crystal clear. They signed it. They knew the terms. Brad Morrison's cross-examination was aggressive. Harsh. He tried to paint me as vengeful. Cold-hearted. Willing to hurt innocent children to punish their parents. Mrs. Henderson, do you care at all about how this eviction affects your grandchildren? 3 little girls. I love my grandchildren more than anything in this world, I said firmly. Which is why I set up trust funds for their futures with money their parents thought they were paying in rent. Which is why I'm teaching them, through this difficult situation, that actions have consequences. That cruelty and disrespect are not acceptable. That you can't treat people badly and expect no repercussions. By making 3 children homeless. By throwing them out onto the street. Their parents have had months to find alternative housing. Many months. I'm not making them homeless. Their parents' choices, their parents' behavior, is what led to this situation. Morrison tried to rattle me. To make me angry or upset. To get me to say something I'd regret. But I had spent 38 years managing difficult parents at school. Balancing complicated situations. Staying calm when people yelled at me about grades or discipline. I had raised a child alone while working full-time. Buried a husband I loved deeply. Built a life from absolutely nothing. This lawyer didn't frighten me. Not even a little bit. When Judge Reynolds asked for closing statements, Richard kept ours simple and straightforward. This is a straightforward eviction case, Your Honor. Mrs. Henderson owns the property legally and completely. The tenants violated the lease terms through documented harassment, defamation, and abuse. The law is clear and on our side. Morrison made an emotional appeal. Talked about family bonds and mercy and forgiveness. Judge Reynolds looked at all the evidence for a long moment. Shuffled through papers. Read things carefully. Then she looked directly at Daniel and Amanda. Her face was stern. Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, she said clearly. I have reviewed the lease agreement in detail. I've seen the social media posts. I have heard all the testimony from both sides. I want to be very, very clear about something. Your behavior toward your landlord, who also happens to be your mother and mother-in-law, has been absolutely appalling. Disgraceful. Amanda started crying. Real tears streaming down her face. Daniel stared at the table. Wouldn't look up. The law is completely on Mrs. Henderson's side. The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. Not only did you breach the lease terms clearly, but you did so with malice. With sustained, deliberate cruelty over a long period of time. I am granting the eviction. You have 10 days to vacate the premises completely. The gavel came down. Ring. Final. Jennifer sobbed openly. Loud crying that echoed in the courtroom. Daniel put his head in his hands. Covered his face. I felt nothing but cold, clear satisfaction. Justice. Real justice. Finally. The eviction was scheduled for February 14th, Valentine's Day. A sheriff's deputy would be present at the house to make sure Daniel and Amanda left completely. Richard had arranged for a moving company to come. Any belongings they left behind would be put in storage for 30 days. After that, if they didn't claim them, everything would be thrown away. I didn't go to the house that day. I couldn't bear to watch it happen. But Richard sent me text updates throughout the day. 10 a.m. Deputy arrived on scene. They're packing their things now. 11:15 a.m. Amanda arguing with Deputy about needing more time. He's not budging. Court order is clear. 1:30 p.m. Moving truck loaded up. They're leaving now. 2:05 p.m. Property secured and locked. Done. It's over. It's over. I sat in my apartment holding my phone, staring at those words. And finally, I let myself feel the full weight of what I had done. What had happened. I had evicted my own son. My only child. His family. My 3 grandchildren were moving to a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a worse neighborhood. They would have to change schools in the middle of the year. Maya's asthma might get worse in their new place. I had heard through Beth that there were mold problems in the building they were moving to. But they had done this to themselves. Every single step of the way they had chances to change course. To apologize sincerely and mean it. To show real remorse and understanding. Instead they tried manipulation, guilt trips, legal threats, and finally outright hostility and hatred. The consequences were earned. Deserved. 2 days after the eviction, I received an email from Daniel. No greeting. No dear mom. Just words. I will never forgive you for this. Never. You have destroyed our family over your ego. Over your pride. The girls cry every single night in their new apartment. It's cold and small and awful. Emma's teacher called because she's having behavior problems at school now. Fighting with other kids. Amanda is on medication for depression because of the stress you caused. You got exactly what you wanted. You hurt us. Destroyed us. Congratulations. I hope it was worth it. You will never meet another grandchild if we have one. You will never be invited to another birthday party. Another holiday. Another family event of any kind. You are alone now. Completely alone. That's what you chose. Live with it. I read it 3 times. Slowly. Then I saved it and filed it away with all the other documentation. All the other evidence. More proof of their complete inability to take responsibility for their own actions. Their own choices. 1 week later, Beth texted me. FY. Amanda is telling everyone who will listen that you stole their house. She's playing the victim hardcore on social media. Painting herself as the innocent one. Just thought you should know. I wasn't surprised. Not even a little bit. Let her tell her version of the story. Let her lie and manipulate. The people who mattered, the people who knew the truth, they knew what really happened. In March I listed the house for sale. The real estate market was very strong. Good for sellers. I listed it at $395,000 and received 3 offers within the first week. I accepted an offer from a wonderful young couple with twin babies. They were so excited about the house. About the neighborhood. About the good schools nearby. At the closing, I signed all the final papers. Received a check for $381,000 after all fees, repairs, and agent commissions were paid. Combined with my existing savings, I now had just over $830,000 total. I sat in my car in the parking lot afterward, holding that check in my hands, looking at all those zeros, and I made a decision right then and there. Called Dorothy. Want to take a trip with me? Asked. Where to? She asked. Curious. Italy. 6 weeks. My treat. I'm paying for everything. We flew to Rome in April. Spring in Italy. Perfect weather. I stayed in beautiful hotels. ate at wonderful restaurants, bought myself new clothes that actually fit properly and looked nice. Real quality clothes. I saw the Colosseum, the Vatican, the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo's David. We took a train to Venice. Spent lazy days riding in gondolas and eating gelato and reading books in sunny piazzas. In Florence I bought beautiful dolls for Emma, Lily and Maya. Expensive ones. Handmade Italian dolls. I shipped them to Daniel's new address with a note. Love always, Grandma. No response came back. I didn't expect one. When I returned to the United States in June, I sold my small apartment. I bought a beautiful condo in a quiet, safe neighborhood with a view of a lake. 2 bedrooms. Modern kitchen with granite counters. Walk-in closet. A small balcony where I could have morning coffee. It was mine. Truly, completely, totally mine. I furnished it with new things. Not the most expensive things in the store, but things I chose because I actually liked them. 'Cause they made me happy. A comfortable couch in a color I loved. High-quality sheets that felt soft. Artwork for the walls that I found beautiful. One Saturday morning in July, I was arranging fresh flowers in my new kitchen when my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole carefully. I saw Emma, Lily, and Maya standing there. And with them was an older woman I didn't recognize at all. I opened the door slowly, cautiously. "Mrs. Henderson," the woman said professionally. "I'm Caroline Stevens from Child Protective Services. These are your grandchildren, Emma, Lily, and Maya. Their parents were arrested early this morning." My heart stopped beating. Completely stopped. "Arrested," I managed to say. "Drug charges. Methamphetamine. Apparently they had been using for several months. Possibly longer than that. The children were removed from the home temporarily for their safety. They mentioned you as their closest relative. As next of kin." Emma was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Lily clutched a stuffed bunny rabbit. Maya looked terrified, frozen. "May we come inside?" Caroline asked. I stepped back. "Let them enter my new home." The girls stood in my living room looking so small, so lost, so scared. "Emma, Lily, Maya," I said softly, gently. "Come here, sweethearts." They ran to me, all 3 at once. I held them all, felt their small bodies shaking with sobs, with fear. "I've got you," I whispered into their hair. "I've got you now. You're safe. I promise you're safe." Caroline explained everything to me while the girls sat on my couch. Daniel and Amanda had been arrested in a police sting operation. They had apparently started using methamphetamine to cope with stress after losing the house, to escape their problems. Their new apartment had been condemned by the city as unfit for children to live in. Mold, broken heating, unsafe conditions. The girls had been found alone there, unfed, neglected, while their parents were out buying more drugs. "We need to place them somewhere temporarily," Caroline said to me. "Normally we would look for foster care, but they specifically asked for you. Are you willing and able to take them into your home?" I looked down at my grandchildren. Emma's eyes met mine, terrified but also hopeful, pleading silently. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Absolutely yes." The temporary placement became permanent within 3 months. Michael and Jennifer both went to prison. Minimum 3-year sentences. Possibly longer depending on behavior. In their absence, I filed legal paperwork for full custody and guardianship of all 3 girls. No one contested it. Nobody fought me. My son had lost everything. His freedom, his children, his wife, his home, his dignity, his entire life. Not because of me. Not because of anything I did to him. Because of the choices he made. One after another. Each choice worse than the last. Leading him down a darker and darker path. The victory was complete. Total. But sitting there holding my granddaughters in my new home, I realized something important. It wasn't really about victory at all. It had never been about winning or losing. It was about justice. About consequences. about teaching people that their actions matter. And sometimes justice is exactly as harsh as it needs to be. The first few months with Emma, Lily, and Maya living with me were challenging. An adjustment for all four of us. They had been through terrible trauma, watching their parents fall apart, living in awful conditions, being taken away by strangers in uniforms. They needed therapy, professional help. They needed patience and understanding. And most of all, they needed stability, safety, love. Gave them all three. I enrolled them in excellent schools near my new condo. Emma started 4th grade. Lily started 2nd grade. Maya started kindergarten. Within just a few weeks, I saw color returning to their faces, heard real laughter coming back to their voices, saw smiles that reached their eyes. I converted my 2nd bedroom into their shared room. We painted it together. They chose light pink with white stars on the ceiling. We bought bunk beds and a trundle bed, matching quilts with butterflies. Every single night I read to them before bed, just like I once read to Daniel when he was small. Maya's asthma improved dramatically in my clean, well-maintained home. Emma's behavior problems at school stopped completely. Her teacher sent me an email. Emma has made remarkable progress. She's engaged in class, making friends, and seems genuinely happy. Summer arrived. Dorothy and I took the girls to the beach for a whole week. Watching them run through the waves, building sandcastles, shrieking with pure joy. I felt happiness I hadn't felt in years. Real, uncomplicated happiness. We established routines that gave them security. Breakfast together every morning at the kitchen table. Friday movie nights with popcorn. Saturday morning pancakes. Sunday visits to the library. Simple moments that built a foundation of safety and love and trust. In September, I received a letter from Daniel, from the correctional facility where he was serving his sentence. He apologized. He took full accountability for everything. He said he was 6 months sober now, working a recovery program, going to meetings. He thanked me for taking the girls, for giving them what he couldn't provide. Stability, love, a real home where they felt safe. I folded the letter carefully, put it in a drawer in my desk. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe someday. But not yet. Amanda, according to Beth, was not doing well in prison at all. She had been caught fighting with other inmates, had time added to her sentence. She still blamed everyone but herself for her situation. She demanded that Beth make me give the girls back to her family. Beth stopped responding to her letters completely. By Christmas, our life had found its rhythm, its pattern. I joined a support group for grandparents raising grandchildren. Reconnected with old friends from my teaching days. Started volunteering at the girls' school. Helping in the library. On Christmas morning, watching Emma, Lily, and Maya open presents in our cozy, warm living room, I realized something profound. This was what I had been working toward my entire life. Building toward. Daniel and Amanda were in prison. Their marriage destroyed. Their futures completely uncertain. They had nothing left. While I, the poor old woman they mocked and belittled, sat in my beautiful home with my grandchildren, financially secure, emotionally whole, genuinely, truly happy. The best revenge wasn't the eviction, wasn't the court case, wasn't taking the house. The best revenge was building a wonderful, beautiful life without them. 3 years have passed now. Emma is 12. Lily is 10. Maya is 8. They call me Grandma. Sometimes just Gran. They are thriving in ways I never imagined possible. Good grades, close friendships, healthy and happy and secure. Here's what I learned through all of this. Kindness without boundaries isn't really kindness. It's enabling bad behavior. Generosity without respect is just exploitation. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is let them face the full consequences of their choices. I gave my son everything I had. But I never taught him accountability. I never taught him that actions have consequences. That was my mistake as a mother. What would you have done in my place? Would you have forgiven them and moved on? Would you have fought back like I did? Would you have found some middle ground? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story meant something to you, if it resonated with your own experiences, please subscribe to Granny's Voice and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you so much for listening to my story today, for staying with me until the very end. Remember this always: you teach people how to treat you. Never ever forget your worth.